네, 여러분 반갑습니다. 방금 말씀을 하셨는데요. 지금부터 글로벌 HR 포럼 2016 트랙 D의 세 번째 세션 직업교육훈련의 혁신이라는 포럼을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 저는 방금 소개해 주신 바와 같이 한국산업기술대학에 적을 두고 있습니다만은 2년 전에까지 한국산업인력공단 이사장을 맡았습니다. 먼저 발표자들을 소개해 올리겠습니다. 제 왼쪽에 능력중심 사회의 구현을 발표해 주실 로널드 제이콥스 교수님 참석해 주셨습니다. 여러분 박수 부탁드립니다. 네. 그 다음에 우리나라의 일학습 병행제에 대해서 발표해 주실 윤석호 한국산업인력공단 일학습 지원국장님 참석하셨습니다. 다음은 토론자를 소개해 올리겠습니다. 정현진 현진 소재 미래교육원장님 참석해 주셨습니다. 다음에는 학습 근로자신데요. 동부대우전자에 근무하시는 이형진 선생님께서 참석해 주셨습니다. 자, 그러면 이번 세션에 대해서 간략하게 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 청년들의 일자리 문제는 여러분 아시다시피 이제 지구촌 전체의 화두가 되었습니다. 그래서 세계 각국은 직업교육 훈련의 혁신을 열심히 추진하고 있고 그 정책 수단으로서 도제 훈련이 지금 각광을 받고 있습니다. 우리나라도 2013년에 일학습 병행제를 도입해서 2017년까지 1만 개 기업과 7만 명의 학습 근로자 참여를 목표로 사업을 추진하고 있습니다. 그리고 작년부터는 고등학교, 전문대, 대학 재학생 단계까지 제도를 확대했습니다. 우리나라의 일학습 병행제는 다른 나라 제도보다도 더 무거운 짐을 지고 있다고 저는 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 높은 대학 진학률로 인한 고학력화 그리고 산업 현장과 괴리된 그런 학교 교육의 문제까지 풀어야 되는 그런 어려움을 안고 있는 것이죠. 그래서 학벌이 아닌 능력중심 사회를 구현해야 된다는 그런 정책 목표도 동시에 추구해야 됩니다. 그래서 우리 일학습 병행제는 대학을 가지 않고도 성공할 수 있는 그런 길이라는 것을 입증해야 될 어려움을 안고 있습니다. 일학습 병행제의 성공적인 정착을 통해 능력중심 사회를 구현해 나가는 데는 많은 도전 과제들이 있습니다. 그래서 이 도전 과제와 그다음에 해결 방안을 마련해 보고자 이 세션을 마련을 했습니다. 그러면 이 자리에 참석해 주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 감사드리면서 오늘 좋은 논의가 되었으면 합니다. 먼저 발표해 주실 로널드 제이콥스 미국 일리노이 대학의 교수님으로부터 능력중심 사회 구현에 대해서 듣도록 하겠습니다. 발표 시간은 25분입니다.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am honored to be here with you today. Many people ask me, is this the first time I've ever been to Korea? And the answer is, this is my 20th anniversary of coming to Korea. So I first came to Korea in 1996. So I've been to Korea many, many times. Sometimes 4 times a year I come to Korea. So Korea has become almost a second home to me to some extent. And so I'm still learning Korean culture, but I am blessed that I have so many Korean doctoral students. In my comments today for the next 25 minutes or so, I'd like to try to answer 3 questions that are sometimes raised in the context of thinking about the work and learning systems that many countries have. And the first question has to do with what is the current workforce development situation in the U.S.? And the second question is to give a little bit more information about what is meant by the word competency, competency-based, and give you some final thoughts that we can maybe discuss a little bit after my presentation as well. So these are the organizing thoughts for my comments. So I hope that these comments will be a contributor to the discussions that we've had yesterday and also today. Well, I have to, this is not going to be like a class where you're going to learn all this new information, but I must say that from a personal perspective, when I was a professor at Ohio State University, I was the director of the Center on Education and Training for Employment. It's a very famous center. It's a little bit like Crivet in some respects. And I used to get emails from scholars all over the world, and they would say, I would like to come to the U.S. and come to your center, and I would like to study the U.S. workforce development system. And I would get these emails, and I would share the email with one of my assistants or a colleague, and you know what we would do? We would laugh. Somebody wants to come and study the U.S. system? We don't have a system. The U.S. system is different pieces and parts. It is not like anything that the Korean government, the Korean government is trying to make. We have 3 pieces of legislation in our history that relate to workforce development in a broad sense. And I don't have time to even talk about these, but what's important for us is, in the recent past, is to talk about the Workforce Investment Act that started in 1998. President Clinton, may be the first President Clinton, I don't know. There may be another President Clinton, we don't know. But started to think about this idea of the dual system, school to work, for the first time in the United States. And since that time, in 2014, there has been an expansion of that Workforce Investment Act, and the legislation has changed a little bit. One thing that is interesting about the American system that differs probably from most other systems of the world is that we do not have a national workforce development system at all. It's all fragmented, and responsibilities are taken by different parts of our society. From an individual perspective, we have what's called secondary career and technical education, CTE, which also people know as vocational education. But we know also that because of certain legislation that from the legislation that maybe some of you know as No Child Left Behind, many secondary vocational funding was reduced dramatically. So much of what we used to have from a secondary school-to-work situation does not exist anymore. Almost all of our school-to-work situations or our dual system is at the post-secondary level. At the post-secondary level, we have community colleges, and the community colleges in the U.S. are the things that is the major job training centers for all of our society. Community colleges do more job training than any other element within our American society. But post-secondary training also occurs through trade unions as well, and proprietary schools, technical schools. And then there's something called adult basic education for literacy training, and that's offered by a lot of different entities as well. And then there is some Department of Labor funds that support dislocated worker. Do you know what a dislocated worker is? It's a person who lost their job because of a downsizing or something like that. So we have all these different programs, some of them perhaps kind of like the Ministry of Education here, our Department of Education, and also from the Department of Labor as well, that we provide funding for job training. From an employer perspective, in other words, how do we support our employers? We have Workforce Investment Act grants to identify regional needs. In our system, we have a very highly developed federal system. So we, from an American cultural perspective, the central government does not direct really much in this regard. The money comes from the federal government to the states and then to local communities who identify the job training needs for the communities. Also the needs of employers as well. So, for example, if a Korean company comes to my state of Illinois and is in a threat to, lose jobs because of competition, they have rapid response grants to help retrain workers, improve productivity, even buy capital equipment and things like that. There is an emphasis in the Department of Labor on SMEs, just like here. This is a very important issue in the U.S., but again, it's fragmented. We have a Department of Commerce as well, and from that, we have our various standards for manufacturing, but we do not in the U.S. People ask, and sometimes they're surprised, we do not have a national competency system as you have developing here in Korea. We do not have a national occupational standards system. We do have occupational standards, but they're administered by many different learned societies like the American Medical Association or trade unions, so it's all fragmented. Well, as you can see in a bit of a summary statement here, is that federal involvement is at various levels. Every administration in the United States tries to consolidate the services that we provide to our citizens, and in the process of trying to consolidate the services, it seems it gets more and more complex as a result. We do not have an overall national policy. We seem to be getting closer, in a sense, because I think there's some frustration about the waste of money that we have in having duplicative services to individuals. We do not have a dual education system in any sense of the word, and much of it is based on individual choice. So it's up to an individual to make a decision of what they want to do. One of the interesting phenomenons that's happening in the U.S., though, is that more and more occupations are requiring a license or a certification. And again, this is not a national perspective, but these are governed by individual states. And so you can look at this list of things here that every state is different. I'm from the state of Illinois, which is in the Midwest, which is more industrialized than states maybe in the southern part of the United States. The states that are historically more industrialized would have greater emphasis on workforce development, manufacturing, and so you would expect to see greater emphasis on a dual system in working with young people, helping people getting into the workforce. I wanted to share an example with you, and I thought, you know what, I will share with you, this is my nephew. My nephew, William, is this person right here on the screen. And I don't think, because he's doing so well now, I don't think he'll mind me telling you about my nephew, William. He graduated from high school with no interest in college. He was a very weak high school student. There were no secondary dual system for him in his state of Florida. So he just had to suffer through high school. At the end of high school, he could do nothing. And many of his friends that I have met are doing nothing after high school, finding jobs, hourly positions. But his father pushed him into an 18-month welding certificate program. At the end of that program that was delivered through the community college, he got a certificate, not a degree, but a certificate that was endorsed by the American Welding Society, a learned society. He then got a job in Georgia where they're building a nuclear power plant. And he became an apprentice, a probationary apprentice, for 2 months. And during the 2 months, it was whether or not the company was going to hire him. So it was a test whether or not he was going to be able to get a job there or not. At the same time, he attended advanced welding classes that was offered by the local union of the welding union that was there. After the probationary period, he was hired by the company as a welder. And he's making, I think, more than $40 per hour. He's a very lucky young man because he's only 21 years old now, but he's making a very good salary and making overtime as well. Now that he's employed, he can continue his studies in the evenings through the union. The union has a training program, and in about 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years, he will become what's called a journeyman. Journeyman is a very highly skilled, desired position. That means that you can sign off on work orders and do a lot of important things. It's a very highly sought after level. It's almost better than having a college degree. It's an example of the dual system, but again, it's up to the individual to do it, not up to the society to help him through. Of course, there are ways for society in the U.S. to help, but the individual has to seek out these opportunities. Well, this is important, and I'm very proud of my nephew because he's moving along, and now he wants to be, now he's interested in going to getting a baccalaureate degree, a 4-year degree in addition, and so I'm very pleased for him. We have, and here in Korea and also in the U.S., a greater attention to this term of competency-based. And, you know, without going into all the history and the ideas behind it, but the idea of competency-based came from the late 1960s and the 1970s in education. Competency-based means that there is a referent, that there's something that is a model for the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So competency-based, in our understanding, means that you have learning with an outcome and job skills with an outcome. And those two outcomes are consistent with each other. So when you think about the NCS, it is about competencies because of the process that was used to develop those NCS documents. There's some more information here, but may or may not be relevant here. What's really important when we talk about competencies and a competency-based society is the standards that we use. Different parts of our society, every society has different stakeholders. Now, I've looked at the NCS very closely and at the dual system here in Korea, and I think it's a wonderful system. It has a lot of promise to achieving the societal goals that you have. But we also know that there are different stakeholders, and it's very difficult to satisfy the needs of every stakeholder. Employers are the ultimate stakeholder, in a sense, in a society, because they give people the jobs. Educators, the people in the schools, the technical schools, trade unions, government agencies, and of course, individuals. They are a stakeholder as well. So when you think about stakeholders and standards, you're always going to have a match and a mismatch, and it's very difficult to have a system like NCS that meets the needs of every single stakeholder within a society. Many countries do have instruments like a national occupational system. In the United States, as I mentioned, we do not have a national occupational system. We do have occupational standards, but those are developed by different interested entities related to the occupations. I should mention that the closest that we have in the United States for a national occupational standard is something called O-Net. Do you know what O-Net is? O-Net Online. Okay, so your homework for tonight, I'm a professor. Okay, I got to give you homework. Your homework for tonight is that you have to look up O-Net, O-N-E-T, online. It's from our Department of Labor, and it's a huge database of occupations that were developed starting in the 1930s during the economic depression at that time. I have been in companies all over the world. HR departments use O-Net to develop job descriptions and help start with the job analyses that they have in their organizations. So, you know, when you think about NCS and job analysis and standards, we have to be very careful about which standard that it's being applied to and how to make it work for that particular stakeholder in our society. For employers, where most of my experience comes from, I know that standards come from job and task analysis, and also using national occupational standards as a source of information for that job analysis. The final thoughts that I have here is the opportunity that I have quite a bit, not only coming to Korea, but many other countries as well, is that workforce development, the term that we use here in the United States, workforce development, is a global concern. About 2 years ago, I brought a delegation from Saudi Arabia, from the Ministry of Labor. They asked me to organize for them a trip to Korea to learn about the Korean workforce development system. So that was really quite exciting for me. It is a concern for every country, but every country has a national history, a culture, and needs. So if I go to, I'm doing some work in Ethiopia, in Africa, their starting point is much different in terms of workforce development than here in Korea. Every country has a national history. So I know that here in Korea, you benchmark with Australia, you benchmark with Germany. My only caution is that to make sure that every time you look at another system, you have to look at it from the lens of your own needs, your own culture, and what is best for your situation. Another interesting thing is somehow, I don't know how, don't ask me, but somehow the United States, our system works. Not very good, but it works. The problem with the U.S. system is that too many young people fall through the cracks. And the reason they fall through the cracks is because they don't take the initiative to seek out the information. And it's, from an American perspective, it's up to the individual to make that effort. But the bottom line is that there's no one best workforce development system for everybody. And so I think many countries have tried to adopt the dual system from Germany, and it's impossible, mainly because of the social contract that exists among employers and unions and the public and schools there in Germany. As I said, the U.S. system is based on both individual initiative in the sense that employers have to go out and seek out the resources, and which are there to help support them, but also individuals as well. The good thing about the American system is all the things that we have here in Korea also exist in the U.S., but it's all not organized clearly, so the individual has to go find it. The individual, either the manager in a company or the individual student who's trying to seek a career. One of the most important things, I think, for all workforce development systems is that it has to be flexible. One of my concerns about the NCS is that so much effort that's put into developing each occupational standard, by the time the standard is developed, the occupation has changed. There's a story that goes back to Germany. When, you know, webmaster, you know that occupation? Okay? Their webmaster appeared as an occupation in Germany, and the private sector was told that it will take 5 years to develop the standard for a webmaster. Well, do you think that's a reasonable amount of time in terms of the amount of change there is in technology and the knowledge base of being a webmaster? No. You know, today, 10-year-old children are webmasters. So to spend 5 years analyzing that occupation and not being able to have an apprenticeship program until it's possible seems unreasonable in today's global society. So we need to have systems that are adaptable to customer requirements of the employers, and they have to be outcome focused. One of the things that I teach my students and my clients when I work with them is to always think about the end first. From a system thinking perspective, it's not what the NCS or the dual system gives us, it's what the results are. That is so very important for us to think about. My final comment in thinking about this and at looking at national systems of workforce development, it is so important that we develop systems, whatever they are, that I call win, win, win. Win for individuals, you know, they get employment, they have a wage. Win for the employers, and win for society, that we have people that are gainfully employed, paying taxes, and contributing to their societies and to their families. Thank you very much.
네, 제이콥스 교수님 대단히 고맙습니다. 미국의 직업능력 개발 상황을 간략하게 말씀해 주셨고, 특히 미국의 제도가 우리나라와는 달리 국가 주도가 아니고 개인이나 사업주 중심으로 이루어지고 있다는 점, 그리고 특히 인상적인 것은 본인의 조카 사례를 얘기하시면서 미국의 우리가 지금 추진하고 있는 일학습 비행기와 비슷한 아주 좋은 사례를 말씀해 주셨어요. 바로 우리가 그런 대학을 꼭 가지 않더라도 뭐 이상으로 대우받고 성공할 수 있는 그런 사람을 만들어내기 위한 제도인데 아주 좋은 사례, 특히 조카 사례를 얘기해 주셨는데 여러분 박수 한번 다시 부탁드립니다. 자, 다음은 우리 이 제도를 초창기에 일학습 비행기를 시작할 때부터 담당을 하신 우리 윤석호 한국산업인력공단 일학습 지원국장님께 마이크를 넘기겠습니다. 발표 시간은 25분입니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yoon Suk-ho, and now I'm working at the HRD Korea Service, and I'm in charge of the work learning, the dual system, and my position is Director General. It is appreciated that you join for this session with interested in human resource development and Global HR Forum. In addition, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to present the work learning dual system in this place. Even though it is only the short time, but I hope that it could be a valuable time to you. Today, I'm going to introduce the background and the necessity of the work learning dual system first, and then it will be followed the overview, operation, and the long-term goal for the system. It is the background that the Korea government introduced the work learning dual system. The policy of skilled manpower in Korea was closely related in the economic development. In 1970s, the government supplied the manpower through the cultivating the skilled work in industrial according to the export-driven policy in 1970s. In 1980, the Korea government is just a little change from the mass production is small quantity batch productions. In 1990s, it was the transfer of the vocational education system as the social safety net through the growing development of the technology and the service industrials in 1990s. 2000, the innovation period, the vocational education policy was transferred from the supply-oriented to the demand-oriented, since the skill mismatch in labor market was severe due to the low growth and high unemployment rate and the low wage rate and so on. Yeah. And now it is why the dual system is needed. As you look at the chart, it is much higher, the rate of youth employment, enrollment aging the 25 to 34 years in Korea than the average of the OECD countries. It also shows that this figure is the higher educator get better salary, and that the position of permanent position is the higher. Moreover, these statistics show that the rate of youth unemployment rate is higher than the rate of the other age. The range is 2 as 24. Yeah. The phenomenon of seeking for the higher education made the Korean society academic-oriented, not competency-oriented. Due to the wage gap by the academic background. Therefore, it caused too much burden the government, the company, and the individuals. Through the implementing the work-learning dual system, the school, as the educational training centers, established the educational environment applied to the industrial demand, and the companies cultivated the talent needed. It is the way to solve the skills mismatch between school and the company. Companies also nurtured their employee directly through the systemic vocational education customized to them, and then it contributed to increase the productivity through the transferring the company knowledge and experience step by step. And now I will explain the overview of the work-learning dual system. The work-learning dual system is the paradigm of the technical vocation and education training and customizing Korea, and after benchmarking the dual system in Germany and Switzerland. First, the company should hire their employee, the youth who they want, cultivating the practical talent to industrial, to meet the required industrial. It is offered a systemic training program targeted to employ the learning work, both in workplace and training institutions. After completing the training, it is certified that the qualification or the degree through the assessment by the government. As the other was, the learning works come and go between school and workplace at the position of being employed through the OJT and OPJT. I think that this system is the innovation of vocational training and education, which companies cultivated their competent works needed after employing the talents by themselves. Now I will give an explanation on operating the system. Companies can join for the system divided as to such as the single company type and the joint vocational training center type. The single company type is the implemented the OJT and OPJT in its workplace, while the joint vocational training center type is that the OJT is conducted in the company and the OPJT in the joint vocational training center. In the other hand, there are certificate type and academic degree type. The certificate type is that the government issued a certificate in case of passing the assessment after completing the training. The latter is that the degree is awarded according to the evaluation result linked to the academic system. And there are so-called school-to-work high school as the apprenticeship school, the Unitech, and the IPP to encourage the student to participate more. When you look at it, the apprenticeship is targeted to second grade student of a vocational high school, teaches theory and basic practical training in school. And on-site professors train them for the practical parts at the workplace. After completing the program, they can be regular works in the enterprise. For the Unitech, it is integrated education linked between school and enterprise, which is aimed to cultivate the practical talent with the theory and the practice coming and going to high school or college and workplace. For the last, the IPP is the operation type, which encourages the university to be reformed as the industrial-oriented, providing the on-site training, and then the companies employ the graduate. I will explain on how to apply and to select the enterprise. As I mentioned before, the companies over 20 employees can apply for the system. The annual training period is from 300 to 1,000 hours. The OPCAT should be 50%, and the minimum wage is paid. There are the requirements to be selected for the work learning dual system. The training program is developed consisting of developers and surveying the basic data. After designing the program through the job analysis of enterprise, the training plan is established as the last. The main feature is based on national competence standard. It is developed by the industrial expert. Moreover, on-site expert in company also involved is developing the program in order to operate it as company-oriented. The training programs are verified through the process being confirmed as the various requirements, considering training period, the proportion of OJT and OJT, training environment, and the management plan for the training, and so on. The quality management on the training program is controlled through the evaluating if the company trained learning works well, or if the learning works participate in the training diligently. Training assessment, it is conducted the company-oriented internal evaluation in accordance with the training plan and the program by ANSYS competency unit. Then, through the government-oriented external evaluation, the certificate will be given by level. Through the government support, it covers the development program, training materials in order to provide the stable training for the enterprise. Additionally, it offers the training allowance per month along with providing the training for the nurturing on-site professors in companies. In addition, it is spotted the training piece. The accommodation piece, and the training allowance in order to lower the cost of the training for the learning works. So far, 8,100 companies have joined for the system, and it will be 10,000 by next year. It will increase the productivity and the competitiveness on the enterprise through the solving the skill mismatch between companies and the schools, and through the encouraging the use in labor market earlier. I will skip. In order to settle the system through the systemic educational training in stable, first, the consulting and monitoring will be enhanced for the quality assurance. Second, it will be strengthened the capacity on-site instructor in order to provide the systemic training to the learning works. And third, the more support will be offered for the fruitful internal and external evaluation. And moreover, the best practice on system will be discovered continuously through the promoting the system in order for the enterprise to actively join for the system, which means they change the culture. Thank you for listening.
윤석구 국장님 고생 많으셨습니다. 우리나라의 일학습 병행제를 간략하게 설명해 주시고 질 관리 강화 또는 홍보 강화 등 앞으로의 발전 방향까지 언급을 해 주셨습니다. 이제 시간을 많이 절약해 주셔서 대단히 고맙고요. 이제 두 분 토론자 말씀을 듣도록 하겠는데, 아까 말씀드렸듯이 직접 기업에서 일학습 병행제를 운영하시는 분과 학습 근로자로 참여하시는 분들입니다. 먼저 우리 정현진 현진소재 미래교육원장님의 토론을 듣도록 하겠습니다.
네,
시간은 10분입니다.
네.
앉아서 해주시죠.
네. 반갑습니다. 저는 부산의 현진소재라는 한 제조 기업체에 있는 기술교육원에 원장으로 지금 재직하고 있고요. 저는 오늘 이 자리에서 한번 이제 공유를 한번 해드리고 싶은 부분이, 과거에 저희 기업체, 즉 산업체에서는 어떻게 인력을 운영하고 그들을 키우고 또 배치시키는 부분에 대해서 고민을 한 히스토리에 대해서 좀 설명을 드리고, 이 부분에 대해서 일학습 병행제를 저희들은 이렇게 활용을 했다라는 내용으로 좀 설명을 좀 드리고 싶습니다. 우선 2010년을 기점으로 해서 그 이전까지만 하더라도 어느 기업들이나 마찬가지였겠지만 인력 운영 방법에 대한 부분을, 운영이 필요한 회사의 긴급성이라든지 또는 인프라, 그리고 여유 인력의 여부, 그다음에 비용 여건 등에 따라서 채용을 할 것인지 교육을 할 것인지 배치를 할 것인지 그렇게 선택을 해왔다고 보시면 되고요. 그때는 물론 기업이 요구하는 능력의 수준과 현재 대학교를 졸업한 근로자가 되기 위한 그들의 능력은 확실하게 차이가 있었음에도 저희들은 어쩔 수 없이 이런 부분을 안고 계속해서 기업은 별도의 훈련을 해왔었습니다. 그러다가 2010년에서 2015년에 접어들면서 과연 이렇게 계속 갈 수 있을 것인가에 대한 고민을 산업체에서는 했고요. 그렇다면 우리가 정말로 필요한 능력들에 대해서는 우리들이 정의를 해서 이것이 필요하니까 이런 부분들을 학교 또는 고용노동부 이런 쪽으로 저희들이 요구를 해왔었습니다. 그 요구를 한 기준이 바로 NCS라고 보시면 될 것입니다. 그래서 NCS에 철저히 기반을 해서 저희가 서서히 인력들을 양성하기 위한 분위기를 조성을 했고요. 첫 번째 방법이 지금 주제가 되고 있는 일학습 병행제를 시작했다고 보시면 됩니다. 물론 일학습 병행제는 현재 기준도 그렇지만 아직까지는 미숙련 인력들을 기업이 스스로 키우는 부분에 대해서 활용했다라고 보시면 이해가 더 빠르실 거고요. 지금 현재 2016년은 확실하게 지금 미숙련 인력들을 기업에 맞는 그런 시스템으로 키우는 부분에 대해서는 지금 일학습 병행제가 충분히 재직 근로자형으로 진행이 되고 있는 거라고 보시면 되고요. 향후 이제 그 숙련 인력들, 기존에 저희들이 재직 근로자의 단계에서 그들이 회사 내부에서도 경력 개발 제도의 틀 안에서 자기만 그 경력을 습득하기 위한 방법으로는 일학습 병행제가 전부 채워주지 못한다라는 판단하에 저희들은 향후 이제 2020년까지 산업체에서는 이렇게 요구를 하게 될 것 같습니다. 그 첫 번째가 일단 첫 번째 미숙련인에 대한 인력 양성은 지금 재직 근로자형으로 하고 있는 일학습 병행제를 충실히 이행을 하고 더불어서 도제학교 즉 고등학교 단계에서 그리고 2년제 대학교에서 4년제 대학교에서 학교의 범위 내에서 철저하게 교육 체계를 도움을 받아서 이론은 학교에서 배우더라도 현장 훈련은 저희 기업에서 할 테니까 그런 훈련 프로그램으로 진행할 수 있는 그런 지금 현재 일학습 병행제를 안착화시킬 수 있도록 저희들이 요구를 하는 상황이고요. 그리고 지금 현재 숙련인 즉 기능인이 어느 정도 됐을 때는 이들도 그들 나름대로의 능력 개발을 키우기 위한 하나의 또 시스템이 필요하다라고 판단을 하고 있기 때문에 그 부분은 지금 현재 국가기술 자격 제도도 새롭게 변모를 하고 있듯이 그런 기술 자격 제도 또는 가정 이수형 자격 제도 이런 것들을 통합적으로 그들의 경력 관리를 할 수 있는 국가 역량 체제 NQF라는 것을 저희들이 향후 도입을 해서 기업에서는 숙련인뿐만 아니라 미숙련인도 같이 이렇게 인력을 운영해야 되는 그런 시스템으로 갖춰야 된다라고 지금 현재 우리 산업체에서는 인식을 충분히 하고 있습니다. 예, 이상입니다.
정현님 원장님 두 분 발표자에 대해서 코멘트하거나 뭐 질문하실 내용이 있습니까?
우선 지금 저희 산업체에서 봤을 때 일학습 병행제는 사실 현재도 재직 근로자형으로 많이 이루어지고 있기 때문에 향후 미래지향적인 일학습 병행제를 운영하기 위해서는 지금 학교 즉 교육 그런 시스템에서도 저희들이 일학습 병행제를 도움을 많이 받아야 되는 상황이거든요. 그래서 우선 윤석호 국장님이 오늘 일학습 병행제 어차피 설명을 해주셨듯이 지금은 재직 근로자형에 어떻게 보면 좀 포커스가 맞춰져서 일학습 병행제가 진행이 이제 되고 있지만 향후 이제 재학생 단계를 저희들이 적극적으로 도입을 해야 되는 상황이기 때문에 이 부분에 대한 향후 계획과 또는 우리 기업체들이 어려워하는 여러 가지 사항들에 대해서 어떻게 그 정책을 펼쳐 주실 수 있는지 그런 부분들이 조금 더 궁금합니다. 네.
아니요, 좀 이따 답을 해주시고요. 우리 정현님 원장님께서 직접 일학습 병행제를 운영하시면서 앞으로 우리나라의 기업들이 어떻게 인력을 운용했으면 좋겠는가라는 그런 개인적인 얘기를 해주셨습니다. 그러니까 입직자에 대해서는 학교를 중심으로 해서 도제학교나 아니면 전문대학, 대학을 중심으로 해서 인력이 충분히 양성하고 그다음에 재직자, 숙련 기술자에 대해서는 NQF라는 큰 틀 속에서 숙련이 내부적으로 형성될 수 있게끔 시스템을 갖춰야 된다라는 게 우리 정 원장님 말씀인 것 같습니다. 자, 다음에는 우리 동부 대우전자의 이영진 학습 근로자님께서 토론을 하시도록 하겠습니다. 토론 시간은 10분입니다.
Hello, I'm Hyungjin Lee, and thank you for inviting me, and thank for the opportunity to talk about vocational education and training in such a nice forum. As he said, I'm a learning worker with work learning dual system in an electronic manufacturing company. So today, I think I should represent learners or students in field, and I will make a brief commentary and ask some questions to two speakers. As you know, innovation of vocational education and training is being more important, especially I think research or innovation of education should be more efficient because I think there are some points of problem or imbalance. At first, I want to point out the mismatch in the concept of education between companies and trainees. Though I have 2 times of experiences named company internship, frankly, I couldn't get any vocational training or education in the company. Instead of that, maybe I tried to get a TOEIC speaking grade with spending 300,000 money, and I've got level 555. So, in short, during my senior period at the university, I like to say that I have focused on running for work to get a job instead of learning at work, how to work at the company. Then how about the company situation? They use a lot of costs or resources to educate undergraduates or their newcomers, but it's hard to find a suitable human resource or workers. And also the quit rate is so high, more higher nowadays. A good vocational program, I think, they can mitigate these problems. Secondly, an imbalance in the training content is a serious problem. I had many experiences that acquired knowledge and skills from in the systems education program gave me. So skills from education improve my working speed or efficiency in my real job, such as I'm working at product planning part. Some lecturer have told me how to use a good or persuasive words in the paper. I think it was really good. But I also had some disappointing experiences that contents are not near working. There, in a few sections or lectures, I felt a gap between educational content and when I go to my office, I couldn't find the contents in my real job situation. So, to make today's discussion more valuable, I want to give some questions to each speaker. First, Professor Jacobs. I'm wondering, what are the critical points to be considered by training program developers or HRD managers to perform job or task analysis better? And secondly, I think it's not easy point, but I think we still have some troubles to deal with global changes. Maybe it's natural in fast forward or fast developed countries like Korea. We are very good at hard work or benchmark, but I think we have lack of flexibility. So in this situation, as Jacob said, the policies or system is reflecting their cultural needs. So I'm wondering, how can you make NCS more responsive or flexible, and what kinds of efforts are needed? It's all of my question to Mr. Jacobs, and second to speaker Mr. Yoon. First, I have a question. In the process of developing training programs, I'm wondering what things could be provided besides financial support, or how can learning workers like me participate in the process? And second, it's just my idea. I have some experience so far on my OJT or off-JT. We have some internal assessments, tests or exam. I think the level of difficulty shows a wide gap among each, and the criteria for judging pass or fail is too low, frankly. Therefore, I suggest reinforcement of external assessment. Why don't you reinforce external assessment? Because in this system, we have just once test when the end of the education program, but we have a long-term education. For me, 2 years. So, of course, I know maybe someone gonna throw a stone if I talk. I want more exam. But I think if you can, the working learning workers have to more exam and assessment method. Yeah. That's all.
이영진 학습 근로자님 대단히 고맙습니다. 그런데 우리 학습 근로자님 질문 수준이 학습 근로자가 아니고 전문가 수준이죠. 여러분 좀 박수 좀 부탁드립니다. 자, 그러면 그 두 가지 질문에 대해서 우리 제이콥스 교수님하고 윤석호 국장님이 각각 차례대로 답변을 좀 주시죠.
Okay. Thank you very much for the very insightful questions, Mr. Lee. The two questions that I heard you ask had to do with the role of job analysis in organizations and employers, and a related question that has to do with how to make systems like NCS more flexible, more adaptable. And this is a very important question. In my own work, I should say that there's a document that I've developed, what I call an occupational profile, to chart how jobs have changed over a period of time. And if you look at a job like nurse, for example, from 1940 to 1980, the role of a nurse, the job of a nurse, hardly changed at all. So if a person trained to be a nurse, they became a novice, and then they became an expert over a period of time, and throughout their entire career, they stayed as an expert. But starting in 1980 or so, and continuing on today, of course, that the role of a nurse, just as one example, changes at a very rapid pace. And so we have a problem in many occupations that jobs are changing. Jobs are changing, and they're not only the content of the jobs, but it's also the underlying competencies of the jobs. In my own research, I'm looking at what's called knowledge work. And so we know that the requirements for people, even on the front lines of organizations, is requiring people to draw upon information, knowledge, and be able to apply it, recognize how to apply it, and act upon it. Okay, so that doesn't really answer your question, but it gives a little bit of context to the situation. From my perspective, job analysis and task analysis are absolutely critical skills that need to reside in employers, among employers, in organizations. Without those skills, organizations may not be able to actually document and make explicit how jobs are changing in their own organization. This is a big issue because the NCS has a cycle to it. You cannot expect the NCS to be updated for any one occupation every 6 months. Impossible. The cycle time for an NCS document must be at least 2 years or so, I'm guessing, but that would have to be logical. So we need to give more adaptability. We need to use documents like the NCS as a core document that tell us about occupations, but at the same time we need to link that information with everything that's happening in organizations. A very quick example of that is what we call a person who operates a press in an organization, in a manufacturing environment. In the old days, a person might be operating one press that they might be making. What I'm thinking about is an organization that makes fine titanium materials that goes in your body. If you have a hip replacement or a shoulder replacement, most of you are young. You don't know what that's like to have a replacement of a hip. But now that same job means that instead of operating physically the one machine, that person is coordinating using 3 robots, 4 machines, and managing that process. So how does the NCS represent that change in that occupation? Impossible. What we need to do, maybe at the government level, is to ensure that employers not only have the standards, but they also have the capacity to go beyond the standards and to be able to respond to changes in the jobs that they have. So I think that those 2 questions, Mr. Lee, are it's a very insightful questions that you ask, and it's very important that organizations respond, and hopefully maybe HRD Services of Korea is that entity in the government to provide, to capacitate organizations to be able to do that. Thank you.
한국말이 훨씬 더 편하니 한국말로 하겠습니다. 우리 정현진 우리 대표님께서 그 이락스 비행제에 대한 현장에서에 대한 애로사항을 말씀을 주셨는데요. 제가 프레젠테이션에서 좀 요약해서 말씀드린 대로 미스매치를 해소하기 위한 거다. 또 능력 중심의 컴피텐시 중심으로 훈련한다 이렇게 정의가 되어 있습니다만 현장은 생산 중심이기 때문에 어떤 사람을 타겟으로 해서 일과 훈련을 병행한다는 것은 정말 어려운 사안들입니다. 그렇지만 이게 이제 한국 정부에서는 독일의 듀얼 시스템을 벤치마킹할 수밖에 없었던 이유는 우리 한국은 이제 이 근로자의 손끝에서 묻어나는 기술력 이외에는 국가 경쟁력을 높일 수 있는 방법이 없다는 것이죠. 결국은 어렵지만 기업은 사람 중심으로 기술을 업시키고 또 그것을 통해서 경쟁력이 높아져야 된다는 것은 아마 틀림없는 사실인 것 같아요. 그런데 이미 이제 급여를 받으면서 경제 활동을 하는 재직자, 그러니까 이미 고용이 된 사람들은 실제 관심은 내가 얼마나 월급을 더 많이 받아야 될까, 또 더 많이 벌 수 있는 방법이 무엇인가를 고민하면서 내가 좀 더 학습 역량을 키워서 돈을 좀 더 받아야지라는 생각은 좀 쉽지 않은 것 같아요, 보니까. 근데 이게 어떤 사회적인 마인드 문제이기도 하고 어떤 이 정서적인 부분이도 되는데요. 그래서 저는 이제 사업을 실무자 입장에서 말씀을 드리면은 이게 이미 고용이 결정되어 있는 재직자에게 어떤 특별한 능력 단위 중심의 훈련을 해라. 그것이 기업의 경쟁력을 높일 수 있는 방법이다. 이렇게 계속 그렇게 주장하는 게 맞느냐? 아니면은 좀 어렵지만 저희들이 특성화 고등학교라든지 전문대학이라든지 이렇게 학생 단계부터 직업의 마인드도 좀 가르쳐주고 또 직무 중심의 능력 단위 중심의 훈련이 형식적 훈련이 아니라 직무를 바로 눈으로 확인할 수 있는 역량이 좀 이게 늘어난 것을 스스로가 좀 체크할 수 있는 이런 그 콘텐츠 중심의 훈련은 좀 청년 시절, 그러니까 고등학교 단계부터 이렇게 좀 체계적으로 시켜야 할 필요가 있다. 그래야만 이것이 재직으로 연결이 됐을 때 자기의 어떤 역량이 중단 없이 개발이 될 수 있고 그것의 결과를 볼 수 있지 않을까. 저는 이렇게 생각합니다. 그래서 뭐 재직자의 일학습 병행제가 필요 없다는 것은 아닌데 앞으로 정말 이게 성공하기 위해서는 우리 좀 젊은 학생들부터 이 기업의 정신 또 이게 노동력이라는 게 무엇이냐, 노동이라는 게 무엇이냐, 고용이라는 게 무엇이고 경제가 무엇이냐에 대한 부분을 좀 관심을 가지게 해서 그 정책하고 연결이 되어서 정말 사람 중심의 어떤 기업이 좀 이게 더 성장할 수 있는 그런 기반이 만들어야 되지 않겠나는 생각을 실무 입장에서 말씀을 드립니다. 예. 대답이 될지 모르겠네요. 네. 그리고 우리 이영진 우리 학습 근로자가 이제 이 수준 레벨 3인데 뭐 어떻게 또 의학을 저렇게 같이 또 공부를 했는지 제가 깜짝 놀랐는데요. 지금 그 주 질문의 내용은 그런 것 같아요. 국가 주도의 평가, 그러니까 정부 주도의 평가가 좀 강화됐으면 좋겠다. 이게 뭐냐면 이렇게 자기처럼 이렇게 의학과 전공을 열심히 하고 뭔가 이게 경쟁력이 있다고 인정되는 사람은 평가를 통해서 좀 내가 사회적으로 또 대우를 받고 보장이 될 수 있는 그런 어떤 좀 시스템이 더 강화돼야 되지 않겠냐라는 얘기 같아요. 그래서 전적으로 제가 동의하고요. 평가는 그 훈련과 평가는 절대 분리될 수가 없습니다. 모든 훈련은 평가를 같이 가게끔 되어 있어요. 그래서 아마 지금 질문 내용이 보니까 평가 자체를 강화를 해야 된다는 얘기는 국가가 좀 더 이게 좀 공신력 있는 평가를 통해서 그동안 열심히 일한 학습 근로자의 역량이 좀 산업의 통용성을 갖게 해줘야 되지 않냐 이렇게 저는 크게 생각을 합니다. 좋은 말씀이라고 보고요. 더욱더 노력을 하겠습니다. 그리고 훈련 프로그램 개발 시에 재정적 지원 이외에 좀 정부가 좀 해줄 게 뭐냐 이렇게 했는데요. 그 프로그램이 제가 말씀드린 대로 NCS라고 했지 않습니까? 그 NCS라는 게 이제 특징이 뭐냐면은 그 능력 단위가 있다는 거죠. 능력 단위. 능력 단위란 얘기는 이제 일을 하는데 어떤 일을 평가할 수 있고 측정할 수 있는 직무 분석의 기반이기도 하고 훈련 결과를 평가하고 있는 평가 도구이기도 합니다. 그래서 그 NCS의 그 표준을 국가가 만들어서 자 이게 좋으니까 여러분들 쓰세요. 채용할 때도 쓰고 훈련할 때도 쓰시고 모든 그 활동에 쓰라고 이렇게 이제 국가가 이제 제공을 한 거죠. 근데 중요한 것은 주는 게 중요한 게 아니고요. 그것을 어떻게 써야 되고 어떻게 활용해야 되는지 부분이 더 중요한 것 같아요. 지금은 많은 산업 분야의 전 능력 단위가 만들어졌다라고 지금 저희들은 얘기를 하고 있습니다만은 현재 학교나 기업에서 필요로 하는 것은 개수가 중요한 게 아니죠. 어떤 능력 단위든지 이걸 어떻게 써야 되는지, 어떻게 활용해야 되는지, 학교에서는 교육할 때 어떻게 능력 단위를 써야 되며 또 기업에서 훈련할 때는 이걸 어떻게 할 것이냐, 또 이것을 채용과 연계했을 때는 어떻게 능력 단위를 활용할 것이냐 이런 부분들이 너무 어려운 것 같아요. 그래서 제가 조금 말씀해 드리고 싶은 것은 재정적 어떤 이런 돈을 들여서 만드는 것만이 중요한 것이 아니라 좀 더 구체적인 그 작동이나 활용이나 이런 또 가이드라인, 이런 컨설팅이겠죠. 이런 부분들이 병행이 되어서 국민들이 그 필요로 하는 것들이 좀 더 쉽게 활용할 수 있는 기반이 재정적 지원하고 병행이 돼야 되지 않겠냐. 저는 이렇게 보고 있습니다. 예, 좌장님 답변은 그 정도 마치겠습니다.
예, 고맙습니다. 이제는 플로어에 계신 여러분들의 고견을 들을 차례입니다. 그런데 직접 마이크를 제가 넘기는 것보다는 효율적인 운영을 위해서 이미 질문서를 서면으로 작성을 해서 저한테 제출을 해 주셨기 때문에 제가 두 분 연사님께 질문을 대신하도록 하겠습니다. 우선 로널드 제이콥스, 조카의 사례와 같은 상황을 만들기 위해서 한국에 아직 정착되지 않는 직무급에 대해서 질문을 드리고 싶습니다. 미국은 이미 정착되어 있는 것으로 알고 있지만 직무급의 기준, 차등을 얘기하는 겁니다. 직무급의 기준 등에 대한 장단점을 사례와 더불어 설명해 주시면 고맙겠습니다. 더불어서 직무급 정착을 위해 한국 정부와 기업이 준비해야 될 것에 대한 조언을 부탁드립니다. 제가 좀 부연해서 설명드리면 아까 조카에 대한 설명을 하셨는데 처음에 시급 40불에서 시작했다가 자료에 보면 나중에 전임맨이 되고 나서는 80불로 올라갔다. 임금 격차가 굉장히 훈련을 받고서 높아졌다는 얘기입니다. 그래서 이런 직무급에 관한 질문을 던져주셨지 않나 싶습니다. 제이콥스 교수님 답하실 수 있겠습니다.
Okay. Well, it's a very good question, and part of it is his fortunate because he has very good parents. Parents, obviously, family is very important. So when you're 18 years old and you don't know what the future should be, you need help. Either people from your school systems or from family members to give you a push. And so his father was the person that gave him the push. And he's also lucky because welders, you know what a welder is, right? A person who applies mechanical or physical means to join together objects, like metals, bringing metals together, okay? So welders right now is a skilled trade that is in very high demand. So it's a market situation as well. So there's lots of people who can do simple tasks, but if you're doing something like a nuclear power plant, the welding has to be done to a standard and a specification, and which he can do now, which he's very lucky. But I would like to think that every young person in the United States would have the same reliable process that he experienced. It's not happening. We have, as I said, we have too many young people who fall through the cracks because either one, they don't have the right family background to push, there's not the availability in the environment, in the state that's there for them, or for one reason or another, they're not interested in further education. Society pays for the situation in one way or another. Society pays for either his education, in some respects, as a subsidy, or if he doesn't get education, they pay for him because he's going to cause problems in society later on through crime and, not him particularly, but in a general sense when people don't have employment. So, the tier, I'm not sure what a tier system is exactly, but I don't know, we don't have that system where people go into apprenticeship systems in a reliable sense as I explained to you. We do have the distinction between skilled and unskilled workers, and that's very important. When we talk about apprenticeship systems in the U.S., we are talking about what we call the skilled trades. People like electricians, people like welders, people like what we call a pattern maker, a person that makes metal things, that makes objects, things like that. Those are skilled trades. This is off the subject and maybe not in the question that was asked, but I want to make sure that we understand there's a lot of use of OJT in the comments, and I know that Korea, of all the countries in the world actually, has been a proponent of SOJT. And so we, in thinking about policy, if we want outcomes from our dual system, we have to make sure that the investment is in SOJT, structured on-the-job training, because we know what OJT might be, and that might be just having a person standing around watching somebody else do the work, and after a period of time, then you say that person's completed their apprenticeships without having ever done anything that reaches their competency. So we know that the reliability of the system depends on many parts, and components to the system, and one of it has to do with what happens when the young person gets into the employer setting. So, you know, the employer and the support to the employer is very, very important.
예, 다음은 우리 윤석호 국장님께 질의를 드리겠습니다. 재학생의 노동시장 조기 진입 그리고 기업 현장에서의 체계적 현장 훈련이 매우 중요한데 재학생 단계 일학습 병행제 활성화를 위한 조언과 활용 방법은 무엇이 있겠습니까? 그리고 두 번째는 고교 단계의 일학습 병행제에서 기업체 참여를 유도할 수 있는 방안과 기업 현장 교사의 자질은 어느 정도 갖추어야 하는 것인지요?
예, 좋은 질문이신데요. 그 말씀 제가 드린 게 좀 답변이 중복되기도 하는데요. 그 현재 지금 재학 단계가 일학습 병행제 상당히 중요한 효과 측면에서 볼 때도 저희들이 의미를 상당히 중요하게 부여하고 있습니다. 그런데 지금 이제 학교 측의 그 일학습 병행제 참여에 대한 어떤 뭐 반응이라 그럴까요? 그것을 봤을 때는 선생님들이 이렇게 얘기하죠. 기업 발굴이 너무 어렵다는 겁니다. 그런데 학교 선생님들이 본인의 업무는 학생을 가르치는 게 본인의 업무이지 얘들을 취업시키기 위해서 기업체를 발굴하고 다니는 게 선생님 역할이냐고 이렇게 저한테 거꾸로도 이제 질문하기도 하죠. 뭐 그분 말씀도 제가 볼 때는 맞는 말씀 같아요. 선생님은 학생들 잘 가르치면 되지 취업까지 전부 다 이제 뭐 책임질 수는 없는데 현재 지금 좀 아쉬운 부분은 이제 학교가 전공과 관련되어 있는 기업체 정보를 누구보다도 선생님들이 많이 알고 계시니까 그 학생들의 취업처 역시 그 선생님들의 어떤 뭐 인적 교류라든지 그동안의 정보에 대한 분석을 통해서 학교가 스스로 학생들이 취업처를 같이 발굴해서 들어오는 현재 그런 구조예요. 현재는 이게 이제 장기적으로 볼 때는 그렇게 건강한 구조는 제가 볼 때는 아니다. 이 기업체에 대한 발굴은 실제 지금 제가 말씀드린 대로 내적 중심의 정말 질적 기반의 국가 제도로 이제 그 성공하려면은 기업에 대한 어떤 정보라든지 기업 발굴은 좀 스스로 찾아올 수 있는 구조를 만들어줘야 된다는 것이죠. 그럼 어떻게 스스로 찾아올 것이냐에 대한 부분은 현재 지금 어떤 사업을 참여하기 위해서 학교가 기업을 가지고 오는 구조보다는 이제 정부가 좀 더 이 사업을 정확하게 국민들한테 좀 더 잘 알려드리고 더 정확하게 좀 알려서 저게 우리 기업도 정말 학생들이 필요하고 예비 근로자들이 필요하다 이런 인식이 좀 퍼져서 기업이 찾아서 스스로 오는 구조가 제일 건강한 구조죠. 그래서 정부는 이제 뭐 이미 늘 지적해 주시다시피 좀 더 홍보 방법을 달리하려고 합니다. 이게 뭐 어렵게 일학습 병행제 뭐 정부 지원이 어떻게 된다 이런 어떤 좀 관리 중심의 홍보보다는 어떤 프로세스 중심의 홍보에 대한 내용도 좀 더 다듬고 해서 기업이 일학습 병행제에 대한 부분을 잘 알고 스스로 찾아와서 이 사업에 참여를 좀 어플라이 할 수 있는 그런 여건들을 정부가 해야 되지 않겠나 싶기도 하고요. 또 현재 저희는 그렇게 가기 위해서 모집 방법도 학교에만 맡길 것이 아니라 이게 뭐 어떻게 국가 중심의 공고를 통한다든지 아니면 뭐 중앙 매체를 통한다든지 해서 이게 상시적으로 학교와 기업이 국가 정책이 이렇게 일학습 병행제를 통해서 인재 육성이 정부가 계속 지원을 하고 있구나라는 걸 좀 인식을 강화시킬 필요가 있다. 그래서 점점점 학교의 어떤 그 기업 부담도 좀 줄여주고 기업도 많은 정보를 통해서 좀 이게 좋은 점을 찾아서 서로가 좀 스스로 좀 윈윈할 수 있는 그런 구조에 대한 고민을 같이 해야 되지 않냐고 저는 그렇게 생각합니다. 두 번째 질문은 그 현장 교사의 그 역량 강화인데요. 제가 발표한 자료에도 좀 넣었습니다만은 좀 극단적으로 말씀드리면은 그 일학습 병행제에 대한 성공 여부는 기업 현장 교사가 가지고 있다 해도 과언이 아니거든요. 뭐 관리적 형태로는 뭐 정부가 얼마 수당을 준다, 뭐 훈련비가 어떻다, 뭐 이렇게 되어 있지만 실제 내용에 가보면은 가르치는 선생님이 어떤 마인드를 가지고 뭘 어떻게 가르치냐에 대해서 이건 결국 승패가 가름이 되는 정도로 아주 중요한 역할을 기업 현장 교사가 하고 있습니다. 그런데 좀 제가 지적을 해주셔서 제가 솔직히 좀 아파요. 제가 좀 이게 좀 어떻게 좀 찔린다 그럴까요? 왜 제가 이런 말씀을 드리냐면은 제가 이렇게 기업 현장 교사의 역량이 중요하다고 얘기를 하면서 실제 이분들의 역량 강화를 위한 노력은 너무 좀 이렇게 충분하지 않다는 것이죠. 뭐 단지 수당을 어떻게 얼마 준다는 것 가지고는 해결이 되지 않는다. 역량 단위에 대한 현장 훈련 기법이라든지 또 학습 근로자에 대한 관리라든지 또 교육 과정에 대한 어떤 다음 단계로 넘어가는 어떤 훈련 기법이라든지 너무나 많은 이 콘텐츠를 좀 체계적으로 계속 가르쳐서 현장이 기업 중심이라면은 결국은 그 기업 현장 교사 중심이다. 이런 어떤 콘텐츠로 이어지게끔 해야 되는데 저희들 그냥 뭐 이거 지원, 이거 지원, 이거 지원 이런 식의 어떤 공급자 중심이죠. 제가 뭐 수요자 중심으로 가야 한다고 노래는 하지만 아직도 시스템은 공급자 중심이다. 참 아쉽게 생각합니다. 근데 정확한 지적을 주셨기 때문에요. 기업 현장 교사의 역량 강화를 어떻게 좀 시켜야 될 것인지 부분은 계속 제가 지금 고민을 하고 있고요. 저 기업의 협조도 필요하다고 봐요. 제가 지금 기업 현장 교사 역량이 필요합니다. 교육 좀 시켜주십시오 하면 대표님들이 잘 보내주시지 않으세요. 왜? 일하기 바쁜데. 중요한 저 사람 김 부장 빠지면 우리 회사가 돌아가지 않는데 무슨 교육을 받으러 가냐는 거죠. 그래서 이게 참 쉽지 않은 부분 같아요. 그래서 정말 일학습 병행제가 성공하려면은 정부 정책도 수요자 중심이라고는 제가 얘기하지만 수요자 역시 좀 이게 인재 육성에 대한 마인드를 좀 달리해서 정말 내가 정말 이게 인재 육성이 정말 내 진심이라면은 현장 교사도 역량 강화를 위해서 교육도 보내는 것도 협조해 주시고 좀 더 사업주의 관심을 좀 끌어내는 이런 어떤 사회적 분위기로 가야만 되지 않겠나 저는 이렇게 보고 있는데요. 뭐 시간이 좀 걸릴 내용이기도 한데 어쨌든 저희들은 기업 현장 교사 역량 강화를 위해서 하여튼 좀 더 노력하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 고맙습니다. 제이콥스 교수님께 질문 드리도록 하겠습니다. How can we overcome the stigma of pursuing vocational training as an alternative to university degree? That's a question.
Okay. How can we, the stigma of training, of vocational training versus the university degree. Is there another question? Yeah, okay. Well, but I have to answer that one first, right? Okay. The reason I'm making a joke is because there really is no answer to that question. Because, you know, the university degree is a highly prized societal outcome. Every parent wants their child to go to college, not only in Korea, but in the United States and a lot of other developed countries. And so when you think that a person can do better, can do well in their lives without a college degree, that somehow, you know, doesn't seem possible. But it is true. And one of the issues that I think is important that is of a conversation in the U.S., because we're a much larger country, is the idea of portability. And portability means that when a person receives a credential, that they are able to do that work and get a job in Illinois if it exists, or if they want to move to California, that an employer recognizes that credential there. So that's portable, going from one place to another. And one of the things about university degrees is that they're really not portable. They just exist. They show that you went to school, and that's fine. And maybe that you're smart and you studied some topics. But the portability issue is very important. And truthfully, I think that's one of the parts of the answer is if the credentials have a geographic portability for people that gives them the flexibility And I think that demonstrates to people that they can work in a lot of different places. They're not in their own location. They're not just living in one city, that they can move around, they can experiment and take their families with them. In general, that's a very important question. It's a question that it's in every country that I've ever visited. Vocational education is looked down. University is looked more highly prized. But how do we, the only thing that we can do is show through evidence that it is an equally important thing in a society to be a welder as it is to be a college graduate. And the joke is in America is, in the middle of the night, if your plumbing breaks and your sink is overflowing, are you going to call a plumber or a college graduate? I think I would call a plumber, right?
비슷한 질문이 또 우리 윤석구 국장님께도 드려야 될 것 같은데요. 현재 특성화고등학교는 사회적 분위기를 보면 그리 좋은 이미지는 아닙니다. 실무 수업 위주인 특성화고의 이미지 개선을 우선 해야 되지 않나 하고 생각하는데 어떻게 생각하십니까?
예, 이미지라는 것이 누가 바꿔주지는 못해요. 스스로가 이미지는 바꿀 수밖에 없다는 게 학교의 특성은 떠나서는 세상살이가 그런 것 같다고 봐지고요. 다만 이제 일학습 병제를 통해서 지금 이제 조금 달라지고 있는 것이, 예전에 그 특성화고등학교 일학습 병제 참여 학생들이 지금은 마스터고 수준은 되지는 않지만 다른 반에 비해서 훨씬 그 직장에 대한 동기부여도 훨씬 크고요. 또 훈련이나 교육이나 학교 수업에 대한 동기부여가 훨씬 차이가 난다는 게 점점 이게 좋은 현상으로 나타나고 있습니다. 그래서 이게 결국 성적이 좋아진다는 게 좋은 것은 아니지만 어떤 앞으로 미래에 대한 동기부여를 일학습 병제 참여하는 학생과 아닌 학생 간의 참여가 차이가 나타나기 시작했다는 것은 제가 볼 때는 아주 좋은 방향이라고 보고 있거든요. 그래서 아마 일학습 병제가 좀 더 제대로 자리를 잡히면 이 특성화고등학교 출신들이 이 일학습 병제를 통해서 그냥 기술학교에 대한 분위기라든지 이미지라든지 이걸 탈피해서 산업 기반의 인재를 역량을 통해 가장 먼저 진입할 수 있는 재원들이 아니냐, 이렇게 저는 평가받을 수 있는 길도 멀지 않다고 저는 그렇게 봅니다. 특성학교 혹시 선생님이 질문하신 것 같은데요. 힘내십시오. 저는 아주 좋게 보고 있습니다. 네.
예, 로널드 제이콥스 교수님, first question, how would you conclude that corporate learning contributes to a company in Korea? Do you have, how would you conclude that corporate learning contributes to a company in Korea?
Well, the idea of career planning and career management have been terms used in the U.S. for a long time. And because of the economies at different points in time, we have seen different corporate emphases on these. We differentiate between the term career management and career planning. Career planning is basically an individual activity. So that's one of the things we as a society have had to learn, that each individual has to take care of their own careers. That they have to be, we learned from the experiences of the 1980s when so many people lost their jobs because of the economy, that people have to be lifelong learners. So there's a whole generation that had to learn that lesson. At the same time, organizations, employers have an obligation to engage in career management. Today we talk about talent development as another term for that. And I think that organizations are very, very concerned about promotion of replacement, especially at the senior management levels. Who are going to be the people of the future in this organization? From a strategic perspective, learning an organization, I think, has come a long way in American organizations, that it's treated as a strategic necessity. It's not perfect, of course. Not every organization treats it as important as others. But, you know, and the economy, the marketplace has a lot to do with that as well. When there's a lot of availability of people, or the wages are stagnant because there are not jobs available. You know, we in the U.S. have had stagnant wages since the recovery occurred in 2010. Wages are just now going up. But we know that employers, and that's one of the parts of the narrative that needs to be said here in Korea, that the cost of doing business, one of the costs of doing business is employers investing in their employees. So it can't be just the government providing the learning opportunities for employees. The companies have to be part of that solution as well. And I was especially interested in Dr. Yoon's comment about the, I'm trying to process the question and everything, but the ideas of the vocational high schools and their, and also the employers' involvement and everything. But there's a certain story that needs to be made. The story is not from a push perspective, you know, like, we need you to accept our graduates in a dual system. There's also the pull perspective. In other words, companies have to be shown that there's a business case to be made if they have employees that are better qualified. And that's one of the outcomes that you need to show managers. You have people that can do more, that can respond to change, that can give a higher quality of product with lower waste and defects. It's a good investment. So there's a business case in all this that's also part of the story. It's not only getting students into the dual system, but it's also, as you said, getting employers wanting those students to come in. But the reason they want them to come in is not only because of the social contract, it's also because it's good business. And, you know, I play in HRD, we play this balance between a very high concern for people and their development, but we also have to have a high concern for the employer. It's okay that employers survive, make money, profits, and everything. So the business case for a better skilled workforce is all the things that you think about when you think about quality. Better cars, more reliable systems. Thank you. Yes?
The question is about the corporate education, not...
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The question is about the cooperative education.
Cooperative education.
제가 발음이 좀 정확지
I'm
않아서
sorry.
그런 것 같습니다. 많은 질문이 있는데요. 지금 이미 정해진 시간이 지났습니다. 그래서 플로어에서 많은 질문을 제가 지금 소개해 드릴 수가 없고 나중에 개인적으로 또 그런 기회가 있으리라고 생각이 됩니다. 1시간 반 동안 우리가 일학습 병행제의 성공적 정착을 통해서 우리 사회를 능력 중심 사회로 만들기 위한 여러 가지 방안들을 논의했습니다만은 시간이 너무 짧습니다. 여기 계신 모든 분들이 앞으로 이걸 계기로 해서 좀 우리나라의 새로 시작한 직업교육 관련 혁신이 빨리 착근될 수 있도록 같이 노력을 해 주십사 하는 말씀을 드리면서 이 세션을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.